Hi everyone, I'm the plant propagator and welcome to my channel. Today there's been a call for what I wanted to share with you today. A few people have been asking me about running some virus testing on some of my plants just so you can see how it's done and just so you can see what the results look like. Now what I'm doing is I have I'm only doing this on 2 of my plants that I want to share with you today. I suspect they may be virused. I don't know for sure, and that's why I'm doing the test. One of the plants, and the first one I'm going to do, there was a little bit of color breaking on the flowers, which is indicative of virus-infected plants. And but it's not flowering right now, but I know the plant, and I'm going to do a small piece of leaf tissue from that plant because I don't have any flowers left anymore. The second plant is one of the larger plants in my collection that I got as a seedling, and now it is pretty big. And I was going to divide this plant. It's a pretty big plant and it's in a pot. I got it right here. I'll show it to you in a few minutes. And I pulled it down to divide it, and I noticed that some of the leaves were kind of contorted a little bit. And I looked at it and I said, uh-oh. You know, occasionally you get this when there's rapid growth, lots of water, depending on what you use to, treat the plants, you can see stuff like this. But the leaves on this plant, and it's a unique seedling. It's a seedling from Fred Clark, and sometimes with seedlings you get unusual growths on them just due to the genetics, and then sometimes it's a virus. All right, so before I get started on this, a few things. So the first thing is that I'm using a ImmunoStrip test from Agdia, and there's a few suppliers of orchid virus test strips, and this is the only one that's in the United States. I contacted them, told them what I wanted to do. They were very responsive, so their support group through email was very good. The test kits are a little expensive, but they seem, from what I saw, I've watched the videos, I haven't done it myself, this is the first time for you and me, they seem to work pretty well. And we're going to take a break because it's 30 minutes for the color to develop. This test is similar to what you have with a COVID test. So it takes a while for that to develop. So the 2 viruses that you can test for with the Agdia ImmunoStrip are Cymbidium mosaic virus, CMV, and Odontoclasm ring spot virus. Now, when you have viruses of these plants, when you look up what kind of virus symptoms you should be looking for, with the Cymbidium mosaic virus, they say you look for mosaic on the plants, splotching on the plants, one side of the leaf, the other side of the leaf, something along those lines. And so there's different types, but that's what everyone says. Now, I don't have those types of symptoms on any of my plants, but I'm going to test it anyway. The other thing with the ring spot virus, it's called ring spot because you have spots, rings on the leaves of the infected plants. And even though it's called Cymbidium mosaic virus and Odontoclasm ring spot virus, they can affect many different types of orchids. So the 2 orchids that I'm testing today are Cattleyas. They don't have typical symptoms, but they have some other, again, my plants have some other symptoms that makes me suspect that they might be infected. A lot of people, it's always discouraging to do this because, when your plants are infected, you can't spray a viricide on your plant. You can't do anything. It's in the plant. All you can do is toss the plant or separate it far enough from anything else that it won't cause any damage. But for the most part, what you should do is just toss your plant. And I'm gonna have a hard time doing this if this comes out positive. All right, so how this works, you take cuttings of the leaves of your plant and you then grind it up. They provide a packaged buffer, a solution. You cut the top of this little bag off and you insert your leaf tissue. You can use root tissue, you can use other types of flower tissue, you can use they recommend not to use pseudobulb tissue. And then you grind it up with some kind of object that won't destroy the bag. Here I've got a couple of pens that I'm going to try. And then you take a strip and insert the strip down in the extract. And by the time you're done with this, the extract is brown or green because you've ground up the tissue in this extract. And then what happens is it's called an ImmunoStrip because there's two different antibodies, two different types of antibodies that are in there. And what happens is the antibodies detect some of the virus proteins, and by capillary action, as they go up in this strip, the first antibodies attach to the virus proteins, and then they further go up the strip, and then there's a second antibody to the first antibody that's fixed to this strip, and then those make bands. So there's indicative bands that form. If you've ever done a COVID test, this is what those bands are in a COVID test, pregnancy test, all that type of stuff. The antibodies that are in there detect proteins that are indicative of what you're looking for. Okay, I hope I didn't lose you on that. The other thing that I wanted you to be aware of is that as I'm sampling plants, and as you're looking at viruses and how they move, the viruses are in the plant sap. So you can't transfer viruses by just touching one plant to another plant. But if you make cuttings of the plant, if you take your instrument and cut the plant, then cut two different plants. If I were to cut this, actually this one I used to take this piece of leaf tissue. And if I would use this to cut this plant and this is infected, then these plants may be infected. So what I do is I flame, and you've seen me do this before. I flame my instruments, and I'm going to probably do it a little bit longer today, but I always, if I go from plant to plant, I always flame my instrument and make sure it gets good and hot, which is great on a hot day like today. Okay, so what you have to be careful about again is as you're taking some. Now, I've always done this, and you have people that don't do this, and this is for really to prevent any kind of pathogens from going from one plant to the other, but this is really important for viruses. This is the main reason that you should do this, is for virus to transfer, to prevent the transfer of virus from one plant to the other, because what happens when you cut into a plant, you get sap on here, and then you cut into a second plant, and then that virus that's in the plant sap is going to be transferred to your second plant. The other way that viruses can transfer, again, it's not just by touch, but if you have insects, chewing, sucking insects, depending on what the insect is, sometimes you can have insects that act as vectors for the viruses, and this is very common in virus transmission in plants is insect vectors. It's unusual to touch. You do have some of the really easy to transmit viruses where you can get them on your hands and go from one plant to the other, and touch is enough. And usually those type of plants, though, they're very sensitive, or they have leaf hairs or other structures on the surface of the plant that are easy to break, and as an entry leaf of the plant usually, and as an entry point for those viruses. And along those lines, if you have those trichomes or leaf hairs or something like that can easily break, and you touch one plant to the other, you can get virus transfer. But again, for the most part, in orchids, we don't have to worry about that too much because there's no structure like that on the leaf of this plant. Okay, without putting things off anymore. So Agdia the people that provide this, oh, and I should mention, these are not cheap. So Agdia will sell you different kit sizes. Agdia is Agdia, and you do Agdia Orchid virus detection kit on Google, and you'll come up with, you'll hit them, and that's easy. And they're in the US, and you put your order in and they'll ship it to you pretty quickly. They're expensive, so if you can buy them in as a 5 test kit sample or as a 25 test kit sample. And the 5 test kit sample, the individual test ends up costing $14 per test. So they're expensive. If you get 25, it ends up being a little less than $7 per test, which is still expensive, but if you need to know it, you need to know it. So, and then they give you, again, everything that you need. The test kit itself, because it contains extraction buffer and antibodies, everything in the test kit needs to be refrigerated until use. There is a shelf life, I think, of a year on these things. And they give you a nice and, really detailed instruction. You can go to their website and see a YouTube video on what you should be doing. It's extremely straightforward. And so we'll go through some of these. And I've never done this before, so we'll see how it goes. And what I'm going to do is I'll show you, this is my first one right here, and I'll show you how to do this. And for the second one, I think I'm going to be, because we're doing 2 tests, I think I'm going to move the camera so you can see how I do this a little bit closer up. Okay, so this is the first test strip. They tell you to cut it like this. These bags have ridges on one side of them, and that helps in the grinding. And you put the leaf in, and you work the leaf towards the bottom of the bag here. And then what I'm going to do, and what they tell you to do, is do the extraction. And the extraction is pretty straightforward. They tell you just to take a pen. And the interesting thing is I did contact them because I'm thrifty, and I asked them, can I get more than one test out of here? Can I, slit the strip that I'll show you in a few minutes? Can I slit the strip in half? And can I divide the buffer solution in half in order to get a little bit more mileage, in order to get 2 strips, because they are so expensive. And I'm grinding the heck out of this. This has ended up grinding pretty well. What's going on, and again, I'll get a little closer on when I do the second one. But what's going on here is the solution is turning, it's turning green because I'm doing a fairly thorough extraction. And everything is in the bag here, and I'm really working hard on it. And they say that if it's, if it gets too, if you make, really thick soup, that it won't, the test won't work as well. But I think I'm okay with this like it is. So what you have here, and I don't know whether you can see it, but what you have here is I did a pretty good extraction. So you have a yeah, you can probably see it against my shirt. So where it's been extracted, it's green because we extracted the pigments and everything that's in there. What I'm going to do is go inside. My test strip is still in the fridge, so I'm going to go inside and get my test strip and come right back out, insert it, and then I'll show you the second test. Okay, and we're back. So these are the test strips right here, and these little tiny things are going to go into this bag on one side of the bag. I got to put my glasses on because everything here is really small. Okay, and the test strip goes in the bag on one side of the bag and down just at the right level so that it wicks up. So I can see it wicking up here in this bag. And then they say to let this go for a half hour, and as this is wicked up, we'll get, we'll hopefully not see any bands that indicate viruses. There's a positive control band that you know the assay is still working, but hopefully we won't see any bands from this. Okay, so the next one, and I think what I'm going to do, I got to try not to disturb this, which is going to be fun to not do. But the next thing I want to do and show you is the other plant, which is right here. So this is a really nice big plant, and this is Chocoberry Fondue that's from Sunset Valley Orchids. And what is going on is there's some contortion of the new pseudobulbs that are growing out. And you know, again, I've seen similar, the plant itself looks great, the new pseudobulbs are coming out, really nice roots on them, and hanging over the edge of the pot just at the right stage where you've got these small roots coming out. So it's on this new pseudobulb and this one right here. So this piece is just wanted to be taken off, and this plant divided, because this is a, you know, this is a nice sized plant here, and it's pretty heavy. But I was concerned when I pulled this down. This is normally pretty high up in my pergola, and I was a little concerned when I pulled this down because I saw the twisting and the contortion of these leaves. So what I'm going to do, the bands are already developing on this thing, and I got to see what this looks like. And I got one band that's developing, but I'm thinking that's the control band. Anyway, I'll show you this. Pretty exciting. if it's not virused. It's pretty exciting for me. You know, it's a shame because this is on virus testing, and I guess it's good if it's negative. But there's just one band. Anyway, I'll show it to you. So let me go back to this other one. I'm feeling a little better about this. So let me pull off of this plant. Let me get this out of the way. And this instrument, I already flamed it. And I'm trying to go down here, and I'm going to cut this leaf off where we're getting this. You know, maybe I'll just cut part of it off. Okay, so I got 3 small, relatively small pieces, but I think collectively there's plenty that's in there. All right, and so let me go to the next test, and I do need to move the camera so that you can see what I'm doing. So let me move the camera and get it closer so you can see what's going on here. Okay, so now we have the second sample that is right over here, and I'm putting the tissue from the second sample in this container. And you can see, or maybe you can't see that well, but there is, so part of this is gridded. So the gridding is on this side of the bag. And so what you do with this is you take, this is a pen, or the tip of a pen, and you take this and you essentially grind up the tissue and do the extraction. And I'm not sure whether you can tell, but what's going on here, which you should be able to see pretty readily, is the extraction of the tissue, and you can see that the extraction buffer is turning a little bit green. All right, so this is what is done. And you can do a pretty thorough extraction. And I've done this before, not with this type of format, but you can hear the tissue grinding in there, and you can see you can see the color forming as you're extracting the chlorophyll out of here. And I don't know if you can see that. Well, yeah, sure you can. So this is a pretty good extraction of this tissue. The next thing that they tell you to do, and I'm just going to mix it up a little bit like this, and I'm on the outside of the bag. I just want to make sure, in case there's that it's all distributed really evenly in this bag. The next thing that they tell you to do is wait 3 minutes while this is, you have to let it settle. The test strip, I guess I can show you this, but the test strip, what you put in here is this thing right here. And you put it in a certain direction, and then what happens is you'll have a band that'll form here depending on what kind of virus you have. The results, let me show you. So that's still got about 2 minutes to settle. But what happens, so this is the sheet that Agdia gives you. They give you a color sheet. I can't find it, so I had to print this out again on my black and white, my laser printer. And so, but pretty detailed instructions are right here. Now what happens is you look at the sheet up here, and where you can see the what the test results look like. If you have one band that's in the right, the control band, one band showing up, and nothing else below it, then only your control is there, and then your plants are virus negative. If you have 2 or 3 bands, there's a different band for the 2 different viruses. So if you have 2 bands, you got 1 of the viruses. If you have 3 bands, you got 2 of the viruses. If you have these other weird results, then your assay didn't work, and there's something wrong. But that's essentially how that all works. Okay, let's go back. And the other thing is to show you. I think this is ready. So I'm going to go ahead. Now I'm not. I'm going to let it sit the 3 minutes that it's supposed to sit. But let's take a look at these early results here, and it hasn't been 30 minutes, but you may be able to see this test, and there is just 1 band that's showing up right here. And I'll get a really nice close-up of this so you can see better, just to be sure. But this, my first plant that I was sure, based on what I saw from that plant, I was sure that it was going to be virus infected, seems to be clean. Okay, in the meantime, what's happening is this one is now ready for the test strip. So we're going to put this test strip on the right side of this bag, and you're only supposed to let it go down to the right level. And so it has to, you don't want to put it in there too deep. I'm getting a little close to being too deep, but this shows it right here. Sorry about the glare. I don't want to manipulate this too much, but so this thing it's going to sit in here, and then it's going to draw up in the through the test strip. And that one's it's pretty hot here, so that's being pulled up pretty quickly into the test strip. So what I'm going to do is take a break and wait till these tests develop, and then share some of my results with you. All right, and we're back. So I'm pretty excited because I think the test strips work. The positive control band that is supposed to be there is there and is very strong. There are no weak additional bands, and so if you have, a lot of times if you have some weak additional bands, that's still a negative test for the viruses. But I don't even have that. I did a thorough extraction. This I think is very cool. Worked very well, and I'm excited because my plants, the ones that I thought looked the worst, that I thought was expecting them to be virus infected, including this really nice big Cattleya that I can now divide, they're all clean. So the first results, this has been going on for a while. The first results, just one single clean control band. The virus bands, if there were going to be any, would be 1 or 2 bands, additional bands, the same intensity below this. And so this is my my plant that had some what appeared to be color break that was in the flower, and the plant itself looked okay. I didn't notice any problems on the leaves, but the leaf tissue that I took for this assay, there might have been some kind of markings on them, but clearly that plant is not infected. The second plant that I have, also a really clean, positive control that you know, for not infected, controlled, and no bands below it like you would normally expect to see if there were these 2 viruses that were infecting these plants. So I think what I've been very careful about how I grow my plants. I always flame my instruments when I go from plant to plant. The first plant that I tested, it was in a colleague's collection, and he had it for a long time, so that's why I was expecting there to be issues. The second plant is a seedling that I've had, I think, probably for about 2 or 3 years, but that's a seedling from a very reliable, Fred Clark, a very reliable source, and if that would have been infected, then I would have done it, but I apparently didn't do it. Everything looks really good. So the 2 plants that I thought might have been infected with these orchid viruses seem to be clean. I've heard horror stories about people that go through their collections and have to dump so many plants because of the viruses that are in there. I don't see any other symptoms on my plants that look like they might be virus infected. So I've got a lot of test kits left. I got the 25 strip test, and so I've got a lot of these left. Their shelf life is a year, but there's no other plants that really are that frighten me as potential virus infected plants. So anyway, what I'll do is I'll keep my eye out. They're in the fridge. They're good for a while. They're not going to be disturbed, and I'll use them if I pick up a plant from somebody else's collection, or if I see some symptoms that I'm not really sure about. I evaluated 2 Cattleyas, which are the main plants that I have and the main issues that I come up with. Many of my plants are seeds and seedlings. Very few of them do I grow, have big plants or that I get from somebody else, or I have an unreliable, I don't buy my plants from people I don't know really well, that I don't know and trust. And and the other thing is that if your plants are growing, it's not always the case, but if your plants are growing, if they're very vigorous, the virus tends to kind of knock them down a little bit. So if your plants are really vigorous, that suggests that you probably don't have an issue, but you can have virus that'll get in the plant. You can have asymptomatic, no symptoms that are associated with this, and if you have something like that, it's a good idea to test. I may do a few more just for fun, but for right now, today, yay, no apparent. The tests are really clean. They work. The Agdia puts a nice kit together. Very easy to use, nice kit, clearly negative results, and the positive results, when they do come up, positive means virus infected. Those, if they're as striking as the control band is, you're going to see them, and there's no question about these assays and how well they work. All right, so yay. That's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you did, you want to keep on seeing them, it would help me out. If you can click on like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. All right, that's all I have for today. Again, I hope you enjoyed it, and happy propagating.